A late summer day in 1972 turned grim in suburban New Jersey. 16-year-old Jeanette DePalma left home and never returned. Weeks later, a local dog trotted out of the woods carrying a human arm, a discovery that led police to a rocky bluff ominously nicknamed the Devil's Teeth. There, on a remote cliff, Jeanette's decomposed remains were found amid what some described as bizarre occult symbols, sparking panicked whispers of witchcraft and satanic sacrifice. The gruesome scene and ensuing rumors shattered the calm of Springfield, New Jersey, leaving a mystery that endures to this day. In this episode of Bad Things, we delve into the eerie unsolved death of Jeanette DePalma, a case entangled with satanic panic and small-town suspicion. Was she the victim of a ritual sacrifice targeted for her faith? Or was the real evil more human? Perhaps someone she knew, or a tragic accident cloaked by coincidence? We'll retrace the timeline of Jeanette's disappearance and the chilling discovery, examine the leading theories from occult cults to personal foul play, and analyze what most likely happened based on the evidence. Prepare for a journey into a true crime mystery that blurs fact and folklore and still haunts a community over 50 years later. Timeline. This jagged, craggy bluff overlooks the abandoned Hoodale Quarry in Springfield, New Jersey. Locals had dubbed it the Devil's Teeth long before 1972, and in hindsight, the name seems darkly prophetic. It was here on September 19, 1972, that police made a gruesome discovery. Jeanette DePalma's lifeless body, badly decomposed, lying on the forested cliff top. August 7, 1972. Disappearance. Jeanette Christine DePalma was a typical 16-year-old girl living with her family in Springfield. That Monday afternoon, 4 days after her birthday, Jeanette told her mother she was going to take her train to a friend's house. She left their home on Clearview Road, reportedly planning to hitchhike part of the way, which was not uncommon in the 1970s. When Jeanette never arrived at her friend's home and didn't return that evening, her worried parents filed a missing person report with the Springfield police the next day. A search began, but for weeks there was no trace of the missing girl. September 19, 1972, the body on the cliff. A resident walking near the quarry noticed something horrifying. Their dog came back from the woods, carrying a decomposing human forearm. Police followed the trail and discovered Jeanette's skeletal remains atop the Devil's Teeth cliff. She was face down, fully clothed, lying in a small clearing. Some at the scene felt something was off. A few witnesses claimed logs and branches had been arranged around her body, shaped like a coffin. Others said small wooden crosses were planted in the ground. One searcher later recalled 2 pieces of wood were crossed on the ground over her head. More wood framed the body, like a coffin. But the rumors didn't stop there. Some locals began whispering about pentagrams, ritual altars, even sacrificed animals. Police would later deny that any such evidence was found, but the stories took on a life of their own. Media frenzy and witchcraft panic. Within days, local newspapers were running sensational headlines. One read, "Girl sacrificed in witch rite." Another suggested her death was the work of a Satan-worshipping cult. Springfield's police chief even acknowledged that one officer had consulted a local witch or psychic for insight into the crime. Jeanette's own pastor, Reverend James Tate, publicly speculated she was murdered by Satanists because of her outspoken Christian faith. According to him, she'd been trying to preach to devil worshippers and paid the price. The setting only added fuel to the fire. The cliff was already known as the Devil's Teeth. The surrounding Watchung Reservation had long been associated with rumors of witchcraft. And less than a year earlier, the nearby town of Westfield had been rocked by the John List family murders, where List's teenage daughter was reportedly dabbling in the occult. The community was already on edge. Now, with Jeanette's death, a full-blown satanic panic took hold. Investigation hits a wall. Despite the headlines, police pursued real leads. One early suspect was a local homeless man known as Red, who lived in the woods and vanished around the time Jeanette disappeared. He was eventually found and questioned but cleared. Whatever spooked him into running, it wasn't murder. Police found Jeanette's belongings scattered near her body. A Vicks inhaler, tissues, a key, some makeup and an empty vial. But the purse itself was missing, and so was the gold cross necklace she always wore. That detail especially stuck out. Had it been taken as a trophy? Interviews with friends painted a conflicting picture. Some described Jeanette as deeply religious. Others hinted at a rebellious streak. No one could say for sure what happened after she left home that day. With no cause of death and no solid evidence, the case quickly went cold. The Lost Files, 1999. By the late 90s, investigators and journalists trying to revisit the case were told the worst. The official files were gone. Springfield police claimed the records had been destroyed in a flood caused by Hurricane Floyd. Whether that was true or just a convenient excuse, no one knew. But it meant the case, already cold, was now frozen. Resurgence and breakthrough, 1997 to 2021. In 1997, Weird NJ magazine received an anonymous tip about a teenage girl's body found on an altar in a Springfield quarry. Readers soon identified the case as Jeanette DePalma's. Public interest returned. Writers Mark Moran and Jesse Pollock spent years gathering accounts, theories, and forgotten details. Their book, Death on the Devil's Teeth, came out in 2015, keeping the mystery alive. Then in 2019, Jesse Pollock made a discovery. The Union County Prosecutor's Office still had a copy of the original case file. With help from former UCPO Communications Director Mark Spivey, Pollock filed formal requests under New Jersey's Open Public Records Act. After 2 years of pandemic delays, the files were released in 2021. The records included crime scene photographs, autopsy reports, and even an FBI lab analysis, all once believed to be lost. The photographs told a different story. There were no pentagrams, no animal carcasses, no ritual setup, just random branches and rocks. An expert in ritual crime reviewed the images and agreed the so-called symbols were natural debris. A 2004 internal memo revealed that authorities had quietly theorized a possible drug overdose, though toxicology was inconclusive. But with no concrete evidence of violence or drugs, the case remained stuck in limbo, officially listed as a suspicious death. Still unsolved. Springfield's police chief confirmed in 2021 that the investigation is still technically open. Pollock and Moran released an updated edition of their book, now including the newly uncovered records, and even a reported confession from a known serial killer, though no charges followed. A grassroots advocacy group called Justice for Jeanette DePalma soon formed, calling for modern DNA testing of surviving evidence. But more than 50 years later, answers are still elusive. Most of Jeanette's classmates are now in their 60s. If her killer is still alive, they've walked free for decades. And yet the mystery lives on, along with the question that's haunted Union County since 1972. What really happened on that cliff? Theories. Over the years, Jeanette's mysterious death has sparked a web of theories, ranging from occult ritual to personal violence to tragic accident. Here are the three most prominent. Number 1. Occult ritual murder, Satanists or witches. The most notorious theory is that Jeanette was sacrificed in a satanic or witchcraft ritual. This idea took root immediately in 1972, fueled by eerie details at the scene and sensational headlines. According to this version, a cult, possibly targeting Jeanette for her Christian faith, killed her atop the Devil's Teeth in a dark ceremony. The supposed evidence? Crosses made of sticks, a coffin-shaped arrangement of logs, and the area's reputation for occult activity. Reverend Tate claimed devil worshippers may have killed her for preaching about Christ. Local law spoke of a group called the Witches that had allegedly vowed to kill a child around Halloween, a prophecy some feared Jeanette's death fulfilled. Decades later, anonymous letters still blamed Satanists. One unverified account even claimed Police found carved arrows, dead animals in jars, and a literal altar, none of which appear in official reports. As compelling as this sounds, it's built more on rumor than fact. Police never confirmed the presence of ritual items and later denied the more grotesque elements outright. The 2021 release of crime scene photos further undercut the theory, showing no pentagrams, altars, or animal remains, just random debris. Even the crosses were likely natural. As Jesse Pollock noted, the symbols described were oddly Christian, not satanic, perhaps imagined or misunderstood. Still, the occult angle can't be fully dismissed. It's possible someone staged the scene to look ritualistic. One friend even claimed a man who often picked up Jeanette while hitchhiking called himself a warlock. Whether that was bluster or something darker is unknown. Ultimately, most modern researchers, including Weird NJ, believe the satanic theory was a red herring fueled by fear and 1970s hysteria, but it left a mark. For years, many locals were too afraid to even talk about Jeanette's death. Number 2. Foul play by someone she knew. Another strong theory is that Jeanette was murdered by someone she knew, or at least encountered that day. She'd planned to hitchhike, which opens the possibility of abduction or assault. One theory suggests an older teen or local man made unwanted advances and things turned violent. Due to decomposition, investigators couldn't determine sexual assault, and forensic tests on her clothes were inconclusive. Police quietly investigated known sex offenders and even considered a serial killer, comparing her case to 4 other unsolved murders, but no link was found. One early suspect, a transient known as Red, had vanished from his shack in the woods around the time of Jeanette's disappearance. Though suspicious, he was later cleared. Others have speculated that someone in Jeanette's social circle could be responsible. A jealous ex, a friend with a secret. One rumor suggested a youth group member or pastor's relative might have been involved in drugs or dark practices. While unproven, it reflects the kind of speculation that arises when official leads dry up. Some believe Jeanette may have been killed elsewhere and her body staged on a cliff to look like a ritual killing. The scattered contents of her purse, found near the body, could indicate robbery or an attempt to conceal her identity. The missing necklace raises similar questions. More recently, advocates like Edward Salzano and the Justice for Jeanette group have pushed for advanced DNA testing. They've even filed lawsuits to compel Union County to examine remaining evidence. So far, nothing has cracked the case, but even a single genetic match could change everything. In all, the personal foul play theory is simple, likely, and tragically common. Jeanette crossed paths with a predator, and no one's ever been held accountable. Number 3. Accident or misadventure. A third possibility is that Jeanette's death wasn't a homicide at all. One early police theory suggested she may have overdosed while partying in the woods with local teens and that others panicked and fled. But this theory has little support. No drug paraphernalia was found, and Jeanette wasn't known to use hard drugs. The area where she was found was steep, overgrown, and remote, not the kind of place teens would casually hang out. Crime scene photos showed no beer cans, trash, or signs of a gathering. Another theory is that Jeanette suffered a freak accident, like a fall or snake bite, while hiking alone. But her remains were intact and positioned atop the cliff, not below it, and there were no signs of trauma. Suicide has also been considered, but by all accounts Jeanette was cheerful, religious, and had future plans. No note was found, and the scene didn't support that explanation. One peculiar detail from the autopsy was elevated lead levels in her remains, raising the possibility of poisoning. But the source of the lead was never determined. It may have been environmental or a red herring. Most investigators today rule out accidental death or suicide due to lack of supporting evidence. While it's conceivable that Jeanette died by misadventure, the probability points more strongly toward foul play, especially given the purse content being dumped out and the missing necklace. As Edward Salzano put it, we've heard everything from strangulation to being shot with an arrow to being bashed in the head. So many rumors, but no answers. And with that, we're left to examine the facts and ask, What most likely happened to Jeanette DePalma? This case is a puzzle with missing pieces. However, based on the evidence we do have, we can draw some reasoned conclusions about what is likely and what is unlikely to have happened. First, the sensational notion of a satanic human sacrifice is probably the least likely scenario. As dramatic as it sounds, this theory crumbles under scrutiny. The early rumors of occult symbols around Jeanette's body appear to have been overstated or misinterpreted. Decades later, tangible evidence of a ritual simply hasn't materialized. No secret cult ever came to light, and extensive research by journalists found no corroboration of an organized coven operating in Springfield that could commit such a crime. The satanic panic of the 1970s and the proximity of Watchung Reservation likely influenced people's perceptions, causing them to connect dots that weren't really there. Even Weird NJ's Mark Moran admitted that while the occult angle drew him into the story, he had the common sense to doubt that black-robed witches with burning torches were truly responsible. The lore of witchcraft added a chilling flavor to the case, but at its core this looks far more like a tragic homicide than an elaborate cult ritual. As one investigator wryly noted, if it was a satanic sacrifice, this girl's body was surrounded by Judeo-Christian symbols, a cross, a halo, which paradoxically suggests a memorial or staged scene rather than a genuine dark rite. Second, the idea that Jeanette accidentally died or overdosed and her death was unrelated to foul play also seems implausible. All indicators, from the missing purse and necklace to the coroner's leanings, point toward Jeanette being the victim of violence or coercion. She didn't simply lie down and die on that hill. Something or someone stopped her from returning home that day. The absence of any evidence for a party at the scene, combined with Jeanette's lack of history with hard drugs, undercuts the overdose theory strongly. And if it had been a misadventure like a fall, the body's positioning and lack of major injuries don't match that. Investigators at the time treated it as a probable homicide for good reason. The fact that police continued working the case and even compared it against other murders indicates they thought a killer was at large. So, what most likely happened to Jeanette DePalma? The most plausible scenario is a straightforward yet tragic one. Jeanette was murdered by a lone perpetrator, someone she met on August 7, 1972, likely while traveling to her friend's house. Perhaps she accepted a ride from a stranger or casual acquaintance. Hitchhiking was her known plan. This person could have driven her to the secluded quarry area, either by force or by deceit. Being a trusting 16-year-old, Jeanette may not have sensed danger until it was too late. The murderer then likely attacked her on that cliff, possibly strangling her, since that's one cause of death that leaves little trace on bones. This would align with the coroner's suspicion of strangulation and the lack of other injuries. The killer might have had a sexual motive. Jeanette's clothing was intact, but that doesn't preclude an attempted assault, or simply the motive of violence itself. After killing her, the perpetrator may have rifled through her purse, dumping out its contents in search of money or to remove identification. Panicking or wanting to quickly leave, he didn't bother to bury or hide the body in any sophisticated way. The surrounding sticks and logs could have been moved inadvertently during a struggle, or as he walked around the body. Or perhaps he made a half-hearted attempt to cover her with branches, which ended up looking arranged purely by chance. He took Jeanette's purse and her necklace, trophies or simply items with her name, and fled the scene. If a car was involved, the remote quarry edge would be a convenient drop-off. There was likely little foot traffic there on a weekday afternoon. The murderer then vanished, and without witnesses, the trail went cold fast. One candidate for this scenario is the unidentified warlock man who was known to give Jeanette rides. We don't know his name or anything more, only that a friend found it strange enough to mention later. Could this person have been a predator who used occult talk as a lure to intimidation? It's speculative, but worth noting. Another possibility is it was a complete stranger, a transient or traveling criminal who happened upon Jeanette. Serial killer theories were explored, but none fit, yet it could still have been a one-off offender. The early 1970s saw other cases of girls being picked up and killed in New Jersey, so it isn't far-fetched. We should also consider the chance of a cover-up or police mishandling muddying the waters. Moran and Pollock uncovered hints of a possible cover-up in their research. For instance, some believe that because Jeanette's case was so controversial and potentially embarrassing if, say, it involved local youth or a scandalous element, authorities may not have pursued it vigorously or even suppressed information. The disappearance of the case file for decades, excused by a flood, fed these suspicions. One anonymous source in Weird NJ even insinuated that Springfield officials might have wanted to cover up the murder so as not to tarnish the reputation of the town. While we have no proof of deliberate cover-up, it's evident the case was quickly dropped from headlines. As one witness noted, it was all the talk of Union County for 2 weeks, then boom, it was gone. It left the papers very quickly. That is very spooky in itself. Whether that was due to lack of leads or pressure to move on, we can't say, but it's a reminder that some truths might have been lost to time, silence, or even willful neglect. In conclusion, the weight of evidence tilts towards Jeanette being the victim of an opportunistic murder, not a supernatural sacrifice. The most likely explanation is often the simplest. A vulnerable young girl crossed paths with a dangerous person. The setting and subsequent rumors cast a haunting light on the case, but strip away the folklore, and you have a story that sadly is not unique. A story of a teenager whose life was cut short by human cruelty. That said, because this case lacks a definitive resolution, we must be cautious. We cannot state with certainty who killed Jeanette or why. There is no arrest, no trial, no confession, only evidence and inference. As the Union County Prosecutor's Office still deems it an open investigation, Jeanette's death officially remains a suspicious mystery. Advocates like Salzano urge that the first step to justice is to establish a concrete cause of death, for instance by releasing Jeanette's X-rays for analysis, and then apply modern DNA testing to any preserved evidence. It's possible that new technology or a witness with a guilty conscience could yet crack this cold case. Until then, Jeanette DePalma's story stands as a chilling tale of a life abruptly ended, a town consumed by fear, and the fine line between truth and legend. Closing thoughts. In the end, the evil forces that took Jeanette DePalma were likely all too human. The real devil in the devil's teeth was not a horned beast or coven of witches, but an unknown person who has evaded justice. We can only hope that someday the full truth is brought into the light, so that Jeanette and her family might finally have closure. For now, her case remains a dark legend of New Jersey, one that reminds us how easily speculation can intertwine with fact when fear takes hold. The cliff where Jeanette was found still looms quietly over Springfield, a silent guardian of its secret. And as long as that secret persists, the question will linger: what really happened on that cliff in 1972?